Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. So this time, someone wrote in wanting to know more about longevity supplements.
Ah, very popular topic these days.
Yeah, and they sent over a podcast episode all about it. So a deep dive, so to speak. It really gets into the biohacking side of things.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they specifically wanted to know about NMN,
Okay.
Resveratrol, Spermidine,
Right.
CoQ10, and PQQ.
Wow, the whole gamut.
Yeah, and I have to admit, some of these I had never even heard of before.
Yeah, some of them are pretty obscure.
Yeah, so we are going to take a look and see what the science actually says about these supplements. You know, are they really the key to a longer life, or is it all hype?
Well, let's find out.
Right, and even if some of them do work, we want to know, are there any downsides?
Right.
You know, what are the things that, supplement companies don't want you to know?
Right. Important questions.
Yeah, so let's dive into the podcast episode this listener sent over.
Okay.
Right away, they start talking about all these amazing benefits of longevity supplements, saying these things can extend your lifespan, improve your cellular health, just, slow down aging in general.
It all sounds pretty fantastic.
It does. It really does. But let's back up a second.
Yep.
What exactly are these supplements?
Right.
How are they supposed to work?
Sure. So let's start with NMN.
Okay.
That stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide.
Okay.
And it works by increasing levels of something called NAD+ in the body.
NAD+.
Yeah, it's basically an enzyme that's found in all living cells.
Okay.
And it's essential for, a whole bunch of cellular processes, especially energy production.
Oh, okay.
But the problem is that NAD+ levels naturally decline as we age.
Oh, I see.
So the idea behind NMN is that by boosting NAD+ levels, we might be able to kind of counteract some of the negative effects of aging.
So it's like giving our cells an energy boost.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about resveratrol?
Resveratrol.
Yeah, that's the one everyone's talking about.
Right. It's the compound found in red wine that's been linked to all sorts of health benefits.
Yeah, I've heard it's a powerful antioxidant.
Exactly. It helps protect our cells from damage. And some studies suggest that it might even activate certain genes that are, involved in longevity.
Oh, wow. So literally turning on the genes that help us live longer.
That's the idea.
Okay, then we got spermidine. What's that one all about?
Spermidine's pretty fascinating.
Okay.
It basically promotes something called autophagy.
Autophagy?
Yeah, it's like our body's natural cellular recycling system.
Okay.
So it helps to, clear out damaged cells and kind of regenerate newer, healthier cells.
So like a cellular detox program.
Exactly. And, there's some research suggesting that spermidine might actually help to extend lifespan.
Wow. Okay, that's 3 down, 2 to go. What about CoQ10?
CoQ10 or coenzyme Q10. It's another one that's naturally found in our bodies.
Okay.
And it plays a vital role in energy production within our cells, specifically in the mitochondria.
Oh, right. The mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And last but not least, we've got PQQ.
PQQ, or pyrroloquinoline quinone.
Now, that's a mouthful.
It is.
What does it do?
Well, like CoQ10, it's also involved in mitochondrial function.
Okay.
So, it helps with energy production, but it also has some antioxidant properties.
So kind of a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah, you could say that.
All right, so we've got cellular energy boosters, gene activators, a cellular detox program, and mitochondrial power-ups.
It's like a whole anti-aging toolkit.
Right, but is it all too good to be true?
Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Exactly. Let's start with NMN, the supposed star of the show.
Okay, NMN.
What does the science say?
Well, there have been some pretty exciting studies done on mice showing that it can increase lifespan. Yeah, and improve, metabolic function, things like that.
Wow. So the mice are living longer and healthier lives.
Exactly.
But mice aren't people.
Exactly. That's the catch. We need more research to know for sure if these benefits translate to humans.
Okay, so it's not a guaranteed fountain of youth just yet.
Not quite.
What about resveratrol then?
Resveratrol, yeah.
People swear by that red wine glow.
Right. Well, it's a potent antioxidant, that's for sure. And studies have shown that it can activate sirtuins.
Sirtuins?
Yeah, they're like genes that are associated with longevity.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The doses of resveratrol that are typically found in supplements, they're actually way lower than the doses that have been studied in research.
Ah, so you might not be getting the full effect.
Exactly. It's like, trying to water your lawn with a teaspoon of water.
Ha. Right. You need way more than that.
Exactly.
Okay, so dosage is key with resveratrol.
Absolutely.
What about spermidine? This was like the most promising one they talked about in the podcast.
Spermidine, yeah.
The cell recycling booster.
Right. It's a really interesting one. Remember autophagy, that cellular cleaning process we talked about? Well, spermidine really helps to ramp that process up.
Okay.
And some studies have even linked it to a reduced risk of mortality in humans.
Wait, hold on. Reduced risk of mortality?
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is, but it's important to remember that, we still need more research to confirm these findings.
Okay, yeah, of course. But still, that's pretty exciting.
It definitely is.
All right, so spermidine is looking pretty good so far. What about CoQ10 and PQQ? Are they the mitochondrial miracle workers they're made out to be?
Well, they're definitely important for mitochondrial health.
Okay.
Which is, crucial for energy production. And could have, some protective effects against age-related decline.
Okay.
But their direct impact on lifespan, that's still kind of a big question mark.
All right, so, some potential there, but we need more research.
Exactly.
But they also talked about some hidden risks of supplements in that podcast.
Right.
Things that companies don't want you to know. What are some things we should be looking out for?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that most supplements, they're not actually regulated by the FDA.
Really?
No.
So what, anyone can just put anything in a bottle and sell it as a supplement?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a little scary.
It is, yeah. So it means that the quality of supplements can vary drastically from brand to brand.
So you might not even be getting what you paid for.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Another thing to remember is that more isn't always better.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to antioxidants.
Oh, right. I've heard of that.
Yeah, excessive intake can actually increase oxidative stress.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
So you're saying too much of a good thing can be bad?
Exactly. It's all about balance.
Okay. That's pretty counterintuitive.
It is, yeah.
Anything else?
Well, we also simply don't know the long-term effects of many of these compounds.
Right.
There haven't been enough long-term studies in humans.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we just don't know what the potential risks might be down the line.
Okay, so be cautious.
Absolutely.
But they also talked about some natural ways to boost longevity.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What did they have to say about that?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is actually something we've already touched on.
Okay.
Intermittent fasting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it naturally triggers autophagy.
Right, the cell cleaning process.
Exactly.
So by strategically timing our meals, we can get some of the same benefits as taking spermidine.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is, yeah.
What other natural strategies did they talk about?
They also mentioned cold therapy.
Cold therapy, like ice baths.
Yeah, things like that.
Ooh, not sure I'm up for that.
Yeah, well, it's not for everyone, but, exposure to cold temperatures can actually boost mitochondrial efficiency.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So giving its cells a jolt of energy.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other natural strategies we should know about?
Well, of course, we can't forget about the classics.
Oh, right.
Exercise and a healthy diet.
Ah, yeah. Those are important.
They are. They really are.
They're not as, exciting as some of these fancy supplements.
Well, true. But they're the tried and true pillars of longevity, and for good reason.
Okay, so break it down for me.
Okay, so exercise, it improves cardiovascular health,
okay,
boosts metabolism, strengthens bones and muscles, and even has positive effects on brain function.
All right, so pretty much good for everything.
Pretty much.
What about diet?
So a whole foods diet, rich in fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats.
Okay.
That's absolutely essential. These foods provide a wide array of nutrients, antioxidants, and fiber, all of which contribute to, overall health and well-being.
So it's all about getting the good stuff from real food rather than relying on supplements to fill in the gaps.
Exactly.
So supplements should be seen as a complement to a healthy lifestyle.
Exactly. Not a replacement for it. It's like you can't outrun a bad diet with a handful of pills.
Ha! I love that analogy.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We talked about the potential benefits of these supplements, the risks, the science, and even some natural strategies to boost longevity. Before we move on, what are some key takeaways?
Well, I think the main thing to remember is that while these longevity supplements are, an exciting and rapidly evolving field, they're not a magic bullet.
Okay.
Some of them show real promise, but more research is definitely needed. And it's just, crucial to be aware of those potential risks that we talked about.
Right. Be a smart consumer.
Exactly.
And don't forget about those natural strategies.
Yeah, right.
Exercise, healthy diet, stress management.
They're still the most important factors for a long and healthy life.
Absolutely. So supplements can play a supporting role, but they shouldn't be seen as a shortcut.
Exactly.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive so far.
Yeah, yes.
We've learned so much about like the science of aging and the quest for longevity. Before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I think a really provocative question to think about is this.
Okay.
If you could invest the money you'd spend on supplements into something else that supports a healthy lifestyle, like a gym membership, a personal trainer, or a chef to cook you healthy meals,
Okay.
would you consider that a better investment in your longevity?
Ooh, that's a great question. It really makes you think about what's truly important.
It does, doesn't it?
Well, that's all the time we have for part 1.
You know, all this talk about supplements is great. But what about some practical advice?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, you know, if someone actually wants to try these supplements,
right.
what should they be taking?
Exactly. Like how much, how often, all that good stuff.
Right. And the podcast episode actually had some suggestions.
Oh, perfect. So let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
What did they recommend for NMN?
So for NMN, they said to start with 250 to 500 milligrams per day,
Okay.
and preferably in the morning.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about resveratrol? Any tips on that one?
Yeah, for resveratrol, they recommended taking it with a source of fat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, olive oil or some nuts.
Interesting. Why is that?
Well, resveratrol is fat soluble,
Okay.
so it's absorbed better when you take it with fat.
That makes sense. Kind of helps it along.
Exactly.
Okay, any dosage recommendations for spermidine?
You know, actually, they didn't give a specific dosage for spermidine. They just emphasized that it's found naturally in a lot of fermented foods,
Oh, right. Like
natto-aged cheese and even mushrooms.
Oh, wow. So they're saying to get it from food first.
Yeah, it seems like they're big on the food-first approach.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess there are spermidine supplements out there too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you're not a fan of fermented foods,
Right, exactly.
you just, can't get enough through your diet.
Totally. Okay, what about CoQ10?
So for CoQ10, they recommended taking it with meals
Okay.
to enhance its bioavailability.
So timing is a key.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got some dosage suggestions.
We do.
But before everyone runs out to buy all these supplements,
Right.
let's not forget about quality.
Oh, absolutely. That's super important.
Yeah, because remember, the supplement industry isn't as regulated as we'd like.
Exactly. You really have to be careful about which brands you choose.
So how can our listeners know what to look for?
Well, one of the biggest red flags is a lack of transparency.
Okay.
Like if a company is being vague about their ingredients
Right.
or their manufacturing processes, that's a sign to be wary.
Okay, so we want companies that are upfront about everything.
Yeah, exactly. They should be proud of what they do.
Got it. What else?
Look for third-party testing certification.
Oh, right. I've heard of that.
Yeah, those certifications means that the product has been independently tested
Okay.
for quality, purity, and potency.
So it's like having a neutral expert double-checking everything.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some of those organizations?
Some of the most reputable ones are NSF International,
Okay.
USP, and consumerlab.com.
Got it. Third-party testing check.
Yes.
What other advice do you have?
I'd say be wary of any outlandish claims.
Okay.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right, like the fountain of youth probably doesn't exist.
Probably not.
All right, so speaking of things that sound too good to be true,
Yes.
let's talk about biohacking.
Yes, biohacking.
That was another big theme in this podcast episode.
It was. It's a fascinating concept.
It is. So for people who aren't familiar, can you explain what biohacking is all about?
Sure. So biohacking is basically a DIY approach to health and well-being.
Okay.
It's all about using technology lifestyle changes and sometimes supplements to try to enhance your physical and cognitive function.
So it's like optimizing your body and mind.
Exactly. Some biohackers experiment with things like intermittent fasting,
Right.
cold therapy,
Right.
or nootropics, which are like brain-boosting supplements.
Wow, so it's like a very personalized approach.
It is. It's all about finding what works best for you.
But it also sounds kind of risky.
Yeah, you definitely want to be careful.
Like, what are some things people should watch out for?
Well, the biggest thing is to remember that everyone's body is different.
Right.
So what works for one person might not work for another.
Okay.
And it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor.
Right.
Before you start experimenting with anything too crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to turn into a mad scientist.
Exactly.
All right, so biohacking is interesting.
It is.
But let's bring it back to longevity supplements.
Okay.
One thing the podcast really stressed was that supplements should support a healthy lifestyle,
Right?
not replace it.
Absolutely. They're not a magic bullet.
Exactly. So it's like you can't just eat junk food all day
Uh-huh.
and then pop a few pills and expect to be healthy.
Right. It just doesn't work that way.
So it's a good analogy for this.
Well, it's like trying to build a house on sand.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. No matter how fancy the house is,
Sure.
if the foundation is weak, the whole thing's going to crumble.
Exactly. So the foundation is a healthy lifestyle
Yeah.
and the supplements are like the decorations.
Exactly. They can enhance the house,
Right.
but they can't replace a solid foundation.
Okay, I think that's a really important point.
It is.
So now let's talk about some of the misconceptions about longevity supplements.
Okay.
I think a lot of people view these things as a magic bullet.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like they think they can just take a pill and cheat aging.
Right, like it's the fountain of youth.
Exactly.
But as we've been discussing, it's not that simple.
Right. Aging is a complex process.
Very complex.
And it's influenced by a lot of different factors.
Genetics, lifestyle, environment.
So supplements can play a role,
They can.
but they're not a cure-all.
Exactly. You can't just reverse aging with a pill.
Right. You have to be realistic.
Absolutely.
And another thing to think about is the cost.
Ah, yes, the cost.
These supplements can be pretty expensive.
They can. And for a lot of people, that cost might outweigh any potential benefit.
Right. So it's important to weigh the costs and benefits carefully
Yes.
and to think about whether that money could be better spent elsewhere, like maybe on a gym membership or healthy food.
Right. Things that have a more proven track record of supporting longevity.
Exactly. It all comes back to prioritizing what really matters.
It does.
All right. So I think we've covered a lot in this part.
We have.
We've talked about dosage, quality, biohacking, and even the cost of these supplements.
Mm-hmm. A lot of good information.
Yeah. And before we move on, I just want to remind everyone, this is all for informational purposes only.
Of course.
Not medical advice.
Right.
So always talk to your doctor before making any decisions about your health.
Absolutely.
And remember, the goal here isn't just to live longer.
Right.
It's to live better.
Exactly. Quality over quantity.
I love that. Well, we'll be back in part 3 to wrap up our deep dive into longevity supplements. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into longevity supplements. We've talked about the science, the potential benefits and risks, the practical stuff like dosage and quality. But I think there's another interesting angle here.
Oh,
The psychology of it all. Like, why are we so fascinated by longevity in the first place?
that's a great question. It's like, what's driving this whole quest for a longer life?
Right. It's not just about the science. It's got to be about like our hopes and fears about aging and, mortality.
Yeah, I think fear definitely plays a role.
Right. Like no one wants to get old and frail.
Exactly. The fear of decline, of losing our independence, of death. It's a powerful motivator.
And it makes us vulnerable to like marketing messages that prey on those fears.
Oh, absolutely. The anti-aging industry is a multi-billion-dollar business for a reason.
It's like they're selling us this idea that we can cheat aging if we just buy the right products.
Right, that there's this magic pill that'll keep us young and healthy forever.
And, part of me wants to believe it, but then there's the other part of me that's like, okay, let's be realistic here.
Right, exactly. We have to balance that hope with a healthy dose of skepticism.
And I think there's also a cultural element at play here, too.
How so?
Well, our society places so much emphasis on youth and beauty.
Oh, absolutely.
And aging, especially for women, is often seen as this negative thing.
Yeah, it's like we're supposed to fight against it tooth and nail.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe part of the reason we're so drawn to longevity supplements is because we're trying to fit into that mold of what's considered desirable or acceptable.
I think that's a really insightful point. It's like, are we pursuing longevity for ourselves or for society?
That's a good question to ask ourselves. What are our true motivations here?
And are those motivations aligned with our values?
Right, because ultimately, a long life isn't really worth much if it's not a life well lived.
I completely agree. Quality over quantity, always.
So I think the key takeaway here is, be mindful, be a critical consumer of information. Don't just buy into the hype because you're afraid of getting older.
Right. Do your research, talk to your doctor, and most importantly, focus on building a life that's meaningful and fulfilling, regardless of how long it lasts.
Well said. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into longevity supplements.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has. We've learned so much about the science, the practical considerations, and even the psychology behind this whole quest for longevity.
And hopefully our listeners feel more informed and empowered to make their own choices about their health and well-being.
Absolutely. So as always, we encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep those conversations going.
And remember, aging is a natural part of life. Embrace it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay well.